Hello and welcome to the first of the webinars for our new manual on practical animal welfare. We are joined today by Matthew Rendle, who is one of the co-editors. Matt started his veterinary nursing career at the Park Veterinary Centre in Watford, a mixed and exotic 13-vet practice, in September 1989, where he completed his veterinary nursing qualification. In 1994, he was made senior theatre nurse. He left in 2003 to pursue his interest in zoo and wildlife nursing at the Zoological Society of London. Matthew left the zoo in April 2017 to look for new challenges within exotic and wildlife nursing. Matt has experience in the nursing care for many species, from ants to elephants and most things in between, and has been fortunate enough to travel as part of his role. He lectures to veterinary nursing and veterinary surgeon undergraduates as part of their core modules on topics such as herpetological husbandry and some areas of zoo and wildlife diagnostic imaging and anaesthesia. Matt has completed a 3-year term on the BVNA Council, which has allowed him to promote and raise the profile of veterinary nursing in the UK. So Matt, thank you very much for joining us today. And can you just introduce us to the new BSAVA Manual of Practical Veterinary Welfare and what we can expect from the book?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, thanks for inviting me to talk about it today. So really, it's a new venture, just looking at a holistic approach to animal welfare in the veterinary sector and wider afield, and just really making sure that all aspects of animal welfare and some human welfare are covered, and just making sure that this is a kind of signpost manual. So it's got lots of practical information in there, but it also gives you some insights, gives the reader some insights into how we can look at different areas and aspects of what we do, any kind of interaction with animals, and really kind of improve their welfare on a really kind of practical day-to-day basis.
Excellent. So you're working with Joe Hind on this brand new title, BSAVA. How did you and Joe come up with the initial idea for the manual?
Yeah, so I kind of initially was looking at how I think in veterinary medicine and in veterinary practice and most animal interactions, we're becoming very tuned in and aware of acute animal welfare. So we're really good at, you know, a dog that's been kicked by a member of the public, or a horse that's, you know, been ill-treated in a way that is very kind of emotive and very easy to see. But what we're not very good at is we're not looking at how chronic welfare is. So, you know, including things like obesity in animals is a real chronic welfare issue, as is not seeing the value in spending the time and training animals to prevent manual restraint for an animal that needs to be restrained. And also looking at how the team need to understand what they're doing, so understanding how you can support each other in the team as regards mental health and burnout and all these different aspects. So Joe and I had a shared interest in this because we both work with species where it's still okay to have a go. You know, it's still kind of seen as, oh, you know, I don't really know what I'm doing, but I'll have a go. And it's so easy to compromise those animals' welfare, both chronically and acutely. And I think we both joined and sat down and kind of thought, actually, could be a really useful manual for the veterinary professions, but also wider afield. So yeah, we've kind of both come out of our comfort zones in some respect, but I think we've ended up with you know, a manual that is much more far-reaching than we thought it was initially. For example, doing the chapter on One Health was just, it's such an interesting area, and obviously so poignant at the moment, but it was just really great working with Becky on that chapter as well. So
excellent. Well, you touched on One Health there. Can you let us know what other topics are in the manual? How did you decide upon these areas?
Yeah, so we wanted to get a flow within the manual to try and make sure that there was, I know it's a kind of cliche, but making sure there was something for everybody, and just being able to, so much of animal welfare is anecdotal and not quantifiable in its nature, how it's recorded. So we've included a chapter on recording methods and how we can really drill down and make those quantifiable and repeatable. So I think that's super important when you've got animals that are being cared for a long period of time. We also looked at some specific aspects of it, so how the use of enrichment can be a great tool in improving animal welfare, as can training, so we've included those as well. And we're very lucky to have been able to get Anne McBride to give a real good foundation overview of behaviour generally. And I must say, reading her chapter just reminded me how little we know and how amazing, you know, there's so much stuff that when you read it, you just think this is incredible. And we also went on to look at how the welfare of the team was really important and how we needed to support each other. And it kind of just grew and grew and grew. And I think we've ended up with a real kind of foundation manual that will hopefully will be seen and be useful to veterinary professionals at all levels of their qualification and training, but also to animal care assistants and behaviouralists generally. So we've looked at every kind of aspect we could think of that when a human interacts with an animal, and how that both parties' welfare can be really looked at and assessed and recorded, but also improved, because I think there's a lot we need to do in improving animal welfare.
Excellent. I know that animal welfare legislation has changed over time. We've got a chapter on ethics and animal welfare. How important is it for people in practice to understand the legislation around these issues as well?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I think most veterinary professionals don't understand the difference between ethics and welfare. And I think we're lucky to have had a great chapter on that as well, which really drills down on, naturally, these things are intrinsically linked. They're always going to be, but they are different things. And sometimes there's an opportunity to be able to look at them as a whole, but also sometimes they need to be very separate. So I think that's super important. And I think it's increasing the legislation, the awareness of animal welfare, and the discussions that are going on about the sentient nature of certain species, such as we've seen it with lobsters very recently, that their kind of cognitive ability is being reassessed. I think it's going to become more important that we kind of keep up to date with what is current therapy. So we've included a chapter on maintaining good welfare during clinical procedures, and some of the techniques in there are useful for, you know, everybody from receptionists through to your kind of senior veterinary surgeons, just how we can change tiny things and not detract from efficiency, but actually improve that animal's welfare during that process.
So it's the book's aimed at the entire practice team then, rather than a specific section, sort of the veterinary nurses or the veterinary surgeons?
Yeah, absolutely. Joe and I were very keen to make sure that it was accessible and written in a way that people could, it could be a signpost for them, that the book is not going to have a definitive, absolutely covers every aspect of everything, but it should give people the quest for knowledge. It should give people to think of giving them a really good understanding that they can then build on and move on to. And you're absolutely right. We've included this section on bereavement, which I think is important for all of the team members, because it's something that receptionists and veterinary care assistants and nurses and vets alike, and lay people within the team as well, they need to be able to support clients and carers as they go through that difficult stage. So yeah, there's something in there that will be of interest to everybody. Excellent.
And just to finish off then, what are the key messages that you'd like readers to take away with them from this new title?
Well, it's a really good one, and it's hard to answer that without sounding a bit funny, but I think the key thing for me is it took me a long while to realise that the more you know, the more you realise how much you don't know, and that can be quite hard to deal with. And I think this manual will give people some insight into the stuff that we know, but it also does highlight the things that we really need to kind of work on as the animal caring teams to make sure that we're maximising. So I think when the readers go through it flows very well, and the chapters are in an order that reads very well, and it will serve as a reference book, but also be interesting to make people maybe just reset your mind as to how you kind of assess welfare. Because I think sometimes as the veterinary professionals, we can be seen that we actually have a good insight into animal welfare, and I'm not sure we do. And I think it's important that we all challenge and question our knowledge and understanding frequently, because things do change, as we're seeing now. You know, animal welfare legislation is changing, so we're getting more challenges to our mindset. Who would have thought that we'd be thinking about the sentient being and the ability of nociception in mollusks, you know, but that's becoming a thing, and I think that's the tip of the iceberg. So I think if it just makes people reflect on what they do, and it's I know that I've done things in the past that it's hard to say, but I've done things in the past that I now think, God, why did I do that? Whereas I think now you kind of read into this, and it gives you that idea of things you can try. And we've made sure it's very practical as well. So it's not that thing of, oh, we did this, but you'll never be able to. It's really things that you can start doing straight away and use that information to improve the welfare of the animals we look after.
Excellent. Well, thank you ever so much for joining us today, Matthew. This is hopefully the first in a series of webinars to do with the new manual. And I think next time we're going to be joined by Joe, where we're going to have a chat about some of the other topics in more detail.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. So, and I just must say thank you to the BSAVA for supporting this new kind of venture and a new subject matter, because I think it is so important, but it is slightly different. So I think it's, yeah, I'm extremely grateful for you and the whole team for supporting it.
No problem. It's an important area, and hopefully everyone will be as interested in it as we are. That's great.